My name is BusinessDay. I work for Food Technologies. For us, what has worked the most is care. From day one, when the employee is coming in, we want to know who he is. We want to know. It's very informal. We want to know who the wife is. We want to know who the children are. You know, we get so close to them, and it's really worked for us amazingly. And another thing is, for me, I talked about the personality of a CEO. It goes down to reflect on who the employees are. So for HR people, I think we have to communicate this to our CEOs. My CEO works in, maybe aside from his side, we don't know that he's a CEO. You know, he's very humble, and we are very charming people in our organization. We're very small, but then we're big people.
Okay, now let me ask you a question, a follow-up question. From what Wale said, in terms of being analytical, from where you sit, how have you been able to track or to present to management that getting close to the people has actually increased their performances, and as such, this is what you have seen from what you have gathered that it has added to the bottom line? Has there been any kind of further walk down that road to actually bring up what you are doing for the general or the company as a whole to see the kind of quality work that is going into making the company what it is?
It has, because they know that you care. They want to put in their best. Because they know that they can walk up to you, you know, and somehow some requests are granted. They're like, okay, I can go out of my way to deliver. Well, for the practical calculation, no, that is not done yet. But we've seen the results, we've seen the commitment, we are seeing the ROI basically.
Okay, so
I don't know if that covers the question, but
okay.
I think the question rather should be, from the way she spoke, she hasn't had the challenge of convincing her CEO to do that. She started by saying that she has a CEO who lives what he is. He brings himself to the table. In other words, he appreciates the importance of caring for people. So that's who he is. So the question to her, rather, I would suggest would be, how can maybe one will be in a greater position to help us answer that question? So for the benefit of those that want to take this initiative to the organization, how can they sell it to the leadership? You say, I was at a seminar where someone spoke so much about the value of care for people. Now, will you let me do this? This is why I want you to do this, because it's going to translate into X and Y and multiply. That's what I think.
Okay, so well, can we hear more from you?
It's a time of peace. Prepare for war. Time of peace in the sense that you have a CEO that values personal relationship and caring for people. You are fortunate the business is doing well. Every business goes through a cycle. You are at a peak period, or maybe slightly off the peak. The deep time will come when the same CEO that's so charming will become a stranger to all of you. And the only thing they will listen to are numbers. So, now that you have the privilege, the luxury of being able to concentrate on having a scorecard that doesn't just measure happiness as engagement. Engagement is they're happy and they're performing. That's what engagement is. The performing side of it is what I'm challenging us to start finding a way to quantify. Don't just rely on the general business report. And how do you quantify the impact of an initiative? It's very simple. You will have a control experiment side by side with a test experiment. It could be within your organization, it could be within and without. What do I mean by that? Your business is caring for people, so you are fortunate. That's the test experiment. Can you look for a similar business to yours that's not caring for people? And can you put some numbers around what their performance is relative to yours? If you want to work within your business itself, I don't know, because your size is relatively smaller, I don't believe any business is small. Once you have more than 5 people, you are not small. Once you have at least 2 managers in the business, you are not small. So can you compare the performance of one manager versus the other? It could be that both of them are performing very well. All animals are equal. Some are more equal than others. The other guy may be performing slightly better than this other person. So just for you to show that in the unit where the happiness level, the engagement level, whatever you measure, is 5% more than the other unit, you have seen this kind of performance from that unit. And if the performance that you are seeing today is not what it is, this is the kind of impact it could have on your bottom line. It's tough, but it's something that you can sit back and look for that key principle. Which one will you look at as the control experiment? Which one will you look at as the test experiment? The test experiment will have the intervention embedded. The control experiment will not have the same intervention. In fact, you can even withdraw it for a while, or you can talk to people and ask them questions around. If the CEO walks through, or your manager walks through without saying hello to everybody, how do you feel that day? You can look for a particular bad day. You've been having good days most of the time. There could be bad days. I mean, those people, your CEO is a human being too. There could be a day you will not just feel like himself. And then you can see the performance of that day. You are a technology company, so it might be a little more challenging. I think for manufacturing and marketing company, it's easier. So you can see the performance of the particular day drop versus what it has always been. And then asking questions like that, people will say, oh, that guy just came in like he has fire on his head. People could not concentrate. And then you can compare that with your average performance of good days and show clearly that when you have a good day, you usually deliver 20% more than when you have a bad day. And if you take that 20% more over your whole year, this is what it translates to. I hope it helps.
I just want to add to that. What Wale is describing is a skill. All right, it's a very, critical skill. So, there is no intimidation in not having that skill. If you have it, of course, it should be deployed immediately. Even if your CEO is not the guy that is going to change in the face of crisis. If that is who he is, regardless of the crisis, that is who he is, you still need to be able to quantify, to be able to measure the good that you have described, in a way that comforts, shareholders who work with figures and numbers. So that's very important. But part of what you need to do is to work with your team and see how you can also engage consultants and engage coaches, executive coaches who may want to, if you have people who are responsible for measurements at that level, who can buy those solutions and learn how that should be done, then you can execute it in your company. Or you can just bring in consultants who can work with you to be able to create a system or do that and then create a system with counterpart staff that can take that going forward. But it's a skill and it has to be done right. There's a science to all of that, but it can be done. So you need to stretch a bit and consider things that can really scientific.
Okay. All right, there are more hands in the room now.
Hi, my name is Ife and I work for CCG as HR Director. Okay, I think one of the biggest challenges we have, generally speaking, in HR, and we're always tearing our hair because of it, is quantifying and how the impacts that we're making within our departments. For me, I'm still relatively new to HR, even though I seem to have done quite well over the short period. But I started in a startup company, e-commerce company, so there's always a strong focus on numbers. So for me, I've come from a situation where we always have to use numbers to raise capital, to raise money, to raise funding. So I'm always numbers driven. So the one way I've been able to do it is through, I look at my department as my own, as he had mentioned, my own baby. So what I do is I look at it and say, I'm more or less I'm looking at my employees as customers. So how, if they are my customers, how do I measure, their satisfaction with my department? So what we actually have done, or what we did at the time, was have customer survey forms. So we looked at the employees as customers, and we sent out these forms. They may sound very boring, but you'll be surprised that after you have enough fields within a particular questionnaire or survey form, people begin to start telling you the truth. They can't lie. Because if you have enough, if you design the question in such a way that you're asking specific questions, and after you're able to collate it, it's very easy to analyze the results. So I've left it and I moved on to another technology company. And as I'm sure the lady that asked the question, we're not particularly that big. So our staff strength is probably about 60. And we can't actually afford. It would be nice for us to get these consultants involved, but unfortunately we can't always do that. So what I started to do, or what my new initiative is, to basically do the exact same thing, but match it against our quarterly reviews. So when you actually compare these two figures, it's actually easy, if you know what you're looking for, to figure out where you're making an impact. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I want to make a comment on that, particularly the consultant issue about what you can afford and what you cannot afford. I wanted to know that one of the last things you should worry about is really what you can afford. What you should first of all be concerned about is what you need to do and the problems you need to solve. I speak for my constituency because I'm a consultant, and I know the kind of results and are achieved organizations. What you need to do, you don't have to bring a consultant into your company to work and rest. All right, you could just discuss with your company, get a buy-in on that, and then have one or two officers who could get trained. Executive coaching also works. You could get trained, and the system can be built, and then you then go into your company and then deploy that, and that's a lot cheaper. So you can consider all of that, and then you could as well just take a study. Yourself, and that will also improve you in your company. What we are talking about is major. You said something. I don't know if you've done the study, but we have, and I could hear that he had done that. A lot of organizations in Nigeria, a lot of businesses are not able to do this measurement. They are not able to put figures and data, and put all of these things right. Okay? And those who do it, all right, do something, but they don't do it as thoroughly as it should be done. As thoroughly as it should be done, particularly as it impacts on the bottom line. You could tell how people are feeling, how the retention and all of that, but when you begin to talk about bottom line, which is what Wale was emphasizing, that can be much more complex than customer survey forms. All right, so part of what you need to do is to actually just go out of your way, and find out if there are specific pathways and channels to achieving it. Are there scientific, clear ways to achieving these results? They exist. So who can get that done for you, or how do you learn that, and how can you get trained? You can take that with you anywhere you go, and that can be a major asset even for you personally. But it's something HR professionals will begin to look at, and even if your company is not ready to invest in that, you can take that investment as part of your personal development program. And if you have that kind of knowledge, you become a critical asset to any organization. If you can pitch that as part of what you bring to the table.
Well, before the investment comes in, I think the first basic thing, life is not as complex as we make it look sometimes. It's about, if I don't do X, I will get a particular result. And if I do X, I will get a different result. You know your product. Like a technology business, if you're into software, you know how much your customers will pay for those softwares. I'm a manufacturing and marketing company. I know how much I sell a case of my product. And I know if I produce a particular brand, this is how much the consumer or customer will pay for it. So, all I need to do is find a situation where a particular intervention that I want to value is present in one case but absent in the other case. And I compare the outcomes. The difference in the outcome is the impact of my intervention.
So, how you create that, those two scenarios is the challenge that we all face. For a technology company, for instance, ideas don't come overnight. It takes people time, if you're into software, for instance, it takes people time, to build a package. So, if the cycle time is 6 months, for instance, you can look at two different teams. It's not you that created the situation deliberately, but two teams will definitely be different from each other. They may both be good, one will still be better than the other. And you look for what is different between the two teams. And you compare the performances of the two teams in terms of how many packages do they generate within the cycle time. You understand? How many projects do they complete within the cycle time? It's that project that brings value to the business. So, you compare the two teams and you find out what is different between the two of them. Oh, the line manager in this particular team is getting the team more engaged than the other one. And we can correlate the performances that's associated with that. Then you see the value of the initiative. So, for every additional 3% in engagement that I have in the project teams, I get an additional 10% project delivered. Everybody will listen to that because they know the value of 1% extra project delivered. So it's about challenging ourselves, challenging our thinking and insights in the way we look at these things. They are not rocket science. Sorry. Okay? But then, the experts will give you more benchmark data. They will come with learnings from all across the world, and you'll be able to benchmark yourself with, beyond what is happening within your own organization. For instance, she may be competing with you, so she will not be willing to provide her data to you. But he would have worked with her, worked with you, worked with so many others outside of the country and say, listen, this is what we have seen work elsewhere. So that's where you get the return on that investment. Okay?
Okay, you would take that question, but let Patrick weigh in on this.
No, additionally, I was going to contribute because I think that this is a very important issue, return on anything you do. And there will always be different sides to the issue. Wale has the benefit of working for one of the biggest firms in the country. But unfortunately for most people, they work in small companies. They may not be able to have control groups here and there. While you may have some tools that work, it's also nice, like Kunle said, be careful how we import some of these things and use here. I always say, for example, when I see what HR managers do in terms of recruitment, it bends my heart when I see them, for example, use GMAT as a way to test people. And I say to them, GMAT was built for the American population. It's culture sensitive. So when you use that tool for the Nigerian culture, it's not likely you'll get the same result. You look for companies, for countries that are similar to ours, and use a similar tool, you can get a better result. We can give you scientific tools in terms of managing return on investment. My colleague is here. We've gone around to a lot of companies, and this issue keeps coming up. And we said, okay, if measuring return on investment is a major issue, probably, is it June or July, we said we'll organize a public forum like this where we can teach HR managers to come and sit in and understand that it's not rocket science. All you need to do, like only what they said is, if we don't even have the benefit of these tools, for example, before you send a salesperson, that's easy. So I like sales. Figures are easy to count. I'm sending you on a program to go and what's the benchmark? What is it been delivering in the last 1 or 2 years? Quarterly and all of that. Send him on this program. When it comes back, another 3 months, let's see what has happened. I don't need any scientific tool. I will see if it is translating into investment. But then the danger is that if we as an organization, we haven't done what we need to do, we may not be able to transfer the learning that took place in the classroom to the workplace. There is something we call learning transfer. So one of the benefits we bring is, for example, do a survey of the institution to see what factors might be hindering transfer of learning So that you don't say that the trainers haven't done a good job or that the candidate is not willing to transfer the learning. Are there inhibiting factors in the institution that may make learning not happen? If there are, can we take them away? Are there factors that are enablers, things we have going for us that we may amplify to make learning transfer happen? We may need to do that. But the simple issue you will do that is you begin to get a hint as to whether or not you are making progress. Just do the simple thing. Take a baseline measure. What is the level of sales right now? Go back again after 3 months, 6 months, fair enough. What has happened? You begin to have, but for professions and for activities that are not as easy to measure as sales, what do? He made mention, and I think twice in his presentation, he has said the essence of employee engagement is not to make people happy. Making them happy is the means. Performance is the goal. Let's not lose sight of that. So we can make people as happy as we want to. Happiness does not necessarily transfer to performance. Let's make it very clear. I have come here all morning to preach happiness and engagement. That in itself will never bring performance. It just makes the environment enabling for performance to happen. We must hold people accountable. Performance comes by accountability, not by happiness. So what you need to do, going back, begin to take those baseline measures. As a people and as a culture, we haven't had a culture of holding people accountable. Even we as HR professionals, before we do anything, before you send people on training, take a measurement. Where are we right now as an organization? Where is this candidate in his performance? Let's send him to Lagos Business School or wherever. Let him go and come, and then we see what has happened. How can I, too, as a manager, help support the training that he has done, such that I'm not frustrating the things he's taking away from the classroom? These are some things you need to look at. So there's nothing very scientific about it. Make it as simple as basic. Take baseline measure. If you don't have enough people to have one control group of 10 here, another control group, we as a people or as an organization can just have a baseline measurement. What does it take if we have people complaining that the major issue that I don't like the way people talk to us? Who are the managers? There are 3 out of 15 of us. Where are they? Let them know how people feel about their style. Let them know the consequences. Give them a benchmark. In another 1 month, we want to keep things change. What you expect to change, the way you interact with them, the way you relate to them, the way you assess performance. Be specific on the things you want to change. Put them on this track and let them understand that there's a consequence if they don't change. He rightly said we've got to come to the level where we look managers and senior leadership in the face and say, this is not right for business. It's killing our business. I worked in a bank before about 12 years ago. One of my colleagues here, I've had as a branch manager in the bank, stand up to an executive director and said, this thing you're doing is not right. We have to change. Like you said, it can cost you your job. When I knew I couldn't any longer continue, I had to quit the system. Time has come for us to leave this timidity and do things that are right. You know something is not working well, so we can put those managers and let them. XYZ, as HR manager, you are a strategic business leader. Time has passed where we are waiting for leaders to come and tell us initiatives we want to implement. We need to be carried along as their evolving strategy and telling business what they need, what HR needs to put on the table for those strategies to work. And that if XYZ don't change, this strategy will just be on paper. It's people that will drive strategy. Yeah. So you are the business partner that will stand your ground and ensure that they bring those initiatives you're proposing on the table. And if they don't do, let them also see how it's costing the business some money, which comes back to the same measurement. If it means you're taking a benchmark of another organization that are treating people right, doing things correctly, and again, an organization similar to yours, so the same issues affect you and them. They are doing things correctly. Look at where they are. I'm sure if we're able to do things like they are doing too, give me 6 months, and you too as HR have to have that confidence to throw a challenge and say, give me 6 months to bring this initiative. If it doesn't work, then there's a consequence. That's my take on it. Thank you.
Okay, next question. How many more people? Okay, 2 more. All right, so 3 more. All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Jane. Today I work with Jobberman and I head the HR department there. I want to talk a bit about HR analytics because HR analytics is a big thing. It's big data, it's workforce analytics, and everything you hear about HR these days. And it's something that I am very, very passionate about, such that I take it upon myself to not just sit and say I'm doing HR reports. I try to get feedback from different departments in the organization. But where I have a bit of challenges, okay, so you as HR, you're trying so much to come with data, with figures for your executives, and they are not receptive to that. Because if I would also want to ask Mr. Wale a question, like, in your organization, are the executives receptive to HR analytics? Because I've had this discussion with several colleagues of mine, and okay, yesterday you want to go for a course in HR analytics. What's the probability that when you get back, after your certification, you get probably somewhere good with, probably get like a GE or something with your certification? People in Nigeria they're not saying HR analytics. And a typical example, so my CEO traveled and he got back and he said, yesterday we need to talk on things that happened around people when I was not around. And yes, me, data, I went to finance, I need the revenue, I need the cost what we spent within this period. I went to the departments, what have you done in terms of your performance, target and actual revenue and everything. Then I went for the meeting and, okay, so what have you done in terms of recruitment? How many people have you hired? What have you done in your training? Okay, thank you, that's all. But I have a lot of data and figures to show you, and so there's a bit of an issue there. Yes, analytics, but even those that you want to present these data and everything to, they've not come to the realization of HR. For other departments in the organization, yes, like the marketing, you want to see figures, especially for startups, e-commerce, just like she said, it's about figures. But when it comes to HR, it's just give me the report.
Okay, would you like to aggregate the questions and give them?
I think what she wanted to say that every business executive will listen to any information that will help him or her deliver the strategies of the business. So, HR analytics or analytics is a skill set that enables us to position our communication to business leaders in a way that they will find useful. So it's not about the data, for instance, it's not about how many training sessions we held in the month. I see a lot of such. But in my function for a period of more than 6 months, I was killing the monthly capability report that's coming from my team, from getting to the rest of the executive. Every time they bring it, I shoot it down. And the reason I did, when I did, was it wasn't providing insights, it was merely providing data. Nobody is interested in going through, we completed 80% of our planned training and we were within budget. Do I care? Yes, I care, but that's not what I'm looking for. Until they come to the point where they talk to, we had this number of interventions in the following particular functions in a month, and it impacted this size of the employee or the workforce. And these are the impacts we have seen. So in this particular territory, this was the performance before the intervention. This is now the performance after the intervention. The resourcing team, is not enough to say, it took us only 10 days to hire a talent, or we hire so many people in the quarter. What's more important is we don't have gap in the business, and the cost of hiring talent is trending this particular way. And every exit is costing us this on the average. So for the business exec, he realizes, it's not just about hiring to replace people that left. So for everyone that left the business, this is how much the business is losing. He goes back to his team and says, guys, my function is draining the business of this value every quarter. In the last quarter, you lost so many people. And this is the total cost to the business as a result of those losses. So that's what analytics helps us to achieve. And that's what is important. That's why the execs may embrace the report or tell you, stop plugging my inbox.
And can I tell you something? And I think this is a mindset and an attitudinal issue more than anything. Part of what you need to understand, and this goes for everybody regardless of what you are trying to do. In this life, nobody gives you your place. You just have to take it. Nobody gives you what you deserve. You get what you negotiate, and what you negotiate intentionally. You are a rebel naturally. You need that culture. Nigeria has not given you power 24 hours. You bought a generator. That's rebellion. So you need that positive energy that allows you to stand as a rebel, to get your message across regardless. Now, the wisdom to be able to present that in a transferable, recognizable, rewardable format is what needs to be learned, and that is wisdom. Okay, that is being right, that's being tactful, and that is an intentional commitment to speak. Everybody you know in the world have a love language. As a counselor, as a life coach, I can tell you that a lot of wives will tell me their husbands are stingy. But the stingy husband is buying a brand new car for a girl outside. It's not stingy. You are not speaking the language. You see? Hello, sorry, I'm not trying to communicate something. Everybody has a language. There's a love language, there's a work language. Alright, so if you're in an organization, part of what you need to understand is to pick the energy of your environment and to know where it's coming from and to know where the power centers are and who is holding power and why you hold that power and how it is that you can eat and dine with that power. It's important. You have a responsibility to be powerful everywhere you are. Everywhere. Powerlessness is a choice. When you tell me that you cannot be heard, I don't judge those who hear. I judge the person that needs to be heard. It's your responsibility and your duty to be heard. You have to find the language that works, the systems that you are going to apply, and to be able to communicate in such a way that is compelling enough to unlock the commitment of those who need to hear you. It's important. So while you are waiting for the organization to be correct in terms of its listening energy and its quantity energy, you need to understand that you have a role to play. You have a relevance to communicate. Whatever you do here, you can't accept keeping quiet because that becomes your reputation. So you're going to take it away with you. I want to advise, take that course right now. That HR analytics course, you need to take it. You need it for yourself first. If your company doesn't buy it, someone is going to buy it at some point. Knowledge is a value that attracts attention, whether you like it or not. If you acquire something unique, originality, authenticity, there is attention. So have something unique. The environment is starved of this skill. If you have it, there's no way it's going to get something across to you. And I want to emphasize something that's very important again before I drop this. And it may be slightly away from what Thomas and Wale had said about that measurement thing. I think it is scientific. And I think that if you are going to be very thorough, you can achieve a lot. You know, there's a difference between a good boxer and world heavyweight champion. They are all good boxers. In Nigeria, we rarely make the choice between good and better. Most of our choices are between bad and good. And that's a very easy choice. But the environment is getting more and more complex. The choice between good and better is going to become the natural choice. And that takes knowledge. And I said something earlier, which I said a lot in my products, that when complexities are intensified, there's a greater and greater demand on knowledge. And knowledge must be presented in a way that everybody can understand. It's very, very important. So I don't want you to take it for granted. You know, otherwise skills we have will define the new sense of skills. You need to go out of your way, you know, and ensure, don't hope that you know. You need to know that you know. You need to be correct that what you have, you know, can work, is standardized, it can work anywhere. You know, and that takes some learning. So I'm not asking you to buy the biggest consultant. I'm asking you to take a personal journey in the list, you know, to ensure that what you know is standardized, you know, and if you apply it, you take it anywhere, you know, it can be plugged into. You need to have that personal commitment to it.
All right, next, please, and let's please make it as brief as possible. so that we can take the remaining people and then close.
Okay. Hello, my name is Dari. I work with College Nigeria. I'm CEO of one of the subsidiaries. I actually raised my hand, but you already kind of said most of what I wanted to say about the question she asked. There's a saying that we have that sell yourself, because nobody will sell yourself for you. So if you have something, you need to be able to find out how you can put it in a way that they will listen to it. You might send it in a report. Because sometimes when a person does not want a particular information from you, when you make it useful for them, after a while they begin to even demand it, even when you don't feel like giving it. So you need to be able to let them see the usefulness, and then they will be able to demand it. Then I also wanted to make a comment, and it's also like the topic that I think needs to be discussed, about employee engagement. Now you have certain employees who they have 100% engagement. They are like, they want to be in the organization. You know they're not going anywhere. You know they want to be there. They are interested in the organization. But in your heart of hearts, you know that they do not have, now on the skill side, they're not performing, but they have all the engagement in the world. Now how do you manage those kind of people? Because the engagement they have is not every other person has it. It's valuable. And then on the other side of it, you have people who you know maybe they are not actively disengaged, they're somewhere in the middle, or they're even actively disengaged, but they know their job, they know what to do, and then they do it well. Now, if you're not Guinness or the big organizations where that you have so many options of people to choose from, you are thinking that yes, this guy is getting to, let's say, he's actively disengaged, but he knows his job. But he does it so dispassionately and does it like he's doing everybody else a favor. But if I get rid of him, I'll probably need to groom somebody else for another God knows how long, or search and pick just whoever walks in the door, because I maybe probably will not be able to pick from the top cream of the crop, and so you feel stuck. So what's the balance between those two things?
All right.
What is it?
You know the answer.
Can we take
Yeah, maybe before you answer your question, because I have something very similar. Second part of that question. My name is Jane. I work at Ernst & Young, and we head of human resources for West Africa. We're talking about engagement, and then you show the index being 26% of people are disengaged. I know we have our engagement index at Ernst & Young, and we're pretty very particular about people who are disengaged. And then even though our engaged numbers are quite impressive, but in terms of the disengaged people, we chase after them. Her second question was, how do we re-engage? And then how do we begin to do some analytics around the numbers that we're able to re-engage relative to those that are disengaged?
Just before you start, just a second. If you have a truck, a 40-ton truck that has a Toyota Corolla engine, and the engine is excellent, but it cannot move the truck, will you continue to keep it?
Let's take this one more. I think they're all in the same.
Okay. I've seen another hand there, so maybe you
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Amaka. I work with Healthcare International. Now, about engagement, when you're making your presentation, you said something about the 40s to 49, that is it disengaged? Partially. Okay, partially. But I have a concern really, because even when Mr. Shorinyo was saying some things, he talked about the millennial people, or maybe you mentioned them, and he was saying they don't stay, they're very mobile. And really, they are mobile. I'm sure a lot of us will agree with me that we have these young people coming into organizations, living very fast. Even you mentioned that when you were saying about training them and suddenly they leave. Then in the company you are having people that are matured, not engaged. I'm a bit concerned because I don't know what the state of any organization will be if you have people leaving so fast, and at the same time the ones that are experienced are not doing what they should be doing. Then for Mr. Shoriyo, please, you said something about technicality. We should not test technicality of employees, but the knowledge. And I begin to wonder, if somebody cannot sell the knowledge and communicate the knowledge and the skills he or she has at the point of trying to engage the person, what do we do as HR practitioners? Because I know that most HR recruitment process is based on testing technicalities and all that, and somebody cannot express with the kind of people we are having now, graduates we are having a lot of people with the right knowledge and skills, sometimes for no fault of theirs because of the kind of exposure they are having. So we really need to know, what do we do? Where are we going to mentor somebody that cannot express?
We'll not lose track of the questions. Let's address this issue. We'll come back to employee engagement again. Well, I will let Kunle answer for himself, but I can give you some answer as to that. It depends on the nature of the job you want the person to do for you. I don't need how much grammar a driver speaks, for example, to know if I can drive very well.
That's fine.
If I'm looking for people to operate machineries, if you run factories like MD or Guinness, the nature of certain jobs in the system may not require high level of communication skills. When I mean, you can communicate what you want to do, but not necessarily in the finest language that you and I want to hear. One company sought our intervention one time. One of the largest furniture producing companies in Nigeria. About 95% of their workforce belong in the factory. And they have this issue of how do we relate, we management with them. One of the interventions I proposed, which they did, was bring someone who understands their language, who also understands the language as a go-between. So he speaks to them, translates to us, performance is booming. There are different ways you can handle some of these issues. So that's my answer to that. You may want to expatiate on that before. Talking about engagement to, sorry, I can't remember the name of poise. Yeah. If you remember my definition of employee engagement, I did mention number one definition was they are productive. So engagement is not about, oh, they are happy and they love us, they want to be here. That's not what it is. Being happy is like a platform, because we believe from a psychology point of view that people anyway will produce better if they're happy about their immediate environment. But I remember saying again that in itself will not give you performance. People have to bring the skills that the job requires, and then with the right motivation, turn them around and give you performance. And I talked about holding people accountable. So if I have somebody who is happy to be with me, he can perform, I'd rather keep you outside. After the end of the month, I can dash you some money. Okay, for liking me, okay. Yeah, like a lot of us give a token to our relatives without necessarily having them work for us. So let's not misunderstand employee engagement to mean happy people with smiley faces around us. That's not what, and I said we can even find where people are happy and not necessarily productive. There are two different issues. But I can tell you that it is unlikely to see unhappy people give their best. They can give you some things and make you okay, but they won't give their best. And we're saying, coming back to that question again, that if you are able to move that chunk who are partially engaged, like you said, you have them with you, you know that they're not fully engaged, but they still give you some kind of performance. And my challenge, which I threw down in the morning, was imagine what will happen if you move them from where they are, assuming they are on, say, if you have an employee engagement index for the purpose of this discussion, let's say rated 1/10, and they are on, say, 3 or 4. Imagine if you move such person to 8 or 9. It's magical what you will see in the system. So that's the point we're saying. I would propose that if people don't have the skills to do the job for which they have been engaged to do, number one, it tells our recruitment and selection procedures and faults in the process. Now that they are here, can we retrain and make them and imbibe those skills? If we can, we are better off as an institution to let them grow. We've got to have the heart. We've got to have that whatever to look them in the face and say, well, it's been nice having you here, but this relationship is not working. were better off. And I've seen people who have underperformed in certain environment move over to some other places and they became superstars. It's in your best interest and their best interest for you to relocate them from positions of non-performance. I've had managers help people look for work in other places where their strengths lie, and they have done well. We can begin to do that. I lost track of the question from Answer Young.
You analyzed 26% that's disengaged. And then my question is, and then you broke the 26 into two in your analysis and said there are some of them that look like they are still not fully disengaged. And then there are the other set of people that are completely disengaged following the parameters that you gave. How do we re-engage?
Okay, thank you. I know I'm working with one of the big four right now on engagement. One of the things I find in the big four organizations, whether it's KPMG, Ernst & Young, Accenture, and the rest, is high level of employee turnover. Some people say it's the nature of the industry, it's fast-paced, high energy, pressure, demands from customers and things like that. Whatever it is. What I said in my figure is you have about 26%, about 29% in most of averagely that are doing well in terms of index. But you have about 45% that are partially engaged. And then you have 26 that are completely disengaged. That's the number, the bottom 26. I'm saying, I'm not sure you really want to waste so much of your energy and resources to engage. Performance lie. One, in not losing the 29% and re-engaging the 45 that are like giving you half. And I'm saying, what is the trick here? One of the factors, I breezed through that in my presentation, and you find out that it's not money. There are three key things that drive employee engagement. I mentioned and I dwelt mainly on one, the relationship with the immediate supervisor. Number two is trust in senior leadership. And number three is pride in working for the position. I reckon that a lot of people who have gone to these blue chip companies, pride is a big organization, global firm, and all of that, so they are okay. People ask, I remember when I was in the bank in Port Harcourt, when you ask people, it's almost like people introduce themselves first by mentioning their company before they mention their name. People that don't have good companies they talk about, they work for, they never mention where they work. They tell you only about their name. So one way you know people who are proud about the organization is that in introducing themselves, they will talk about the companies that they work for. It shows they are proud about the organization. For such people, like I said, there are different demographics in the system. For big four firms like yours, I know KPMG, and I'm sure you do a lot of these big companies do these indices every now and then. If you drill further to do the demographics of people, the first thing you need to do is which people are those that fall here. The intervention will determine what you do. If they fall within the cadre of this 40 to 49, and I've said from our experience, working with global firms across the world, big and small, shows that these people are looking for self-actualization. They are looking to man projects that they can call their own. They want to look back to say, I was responsible for this. So if I'm in my 40s, I don't want a supervisor that treats me like I'm a 26-year-old. I want some level of dignity. That's how to re-engage me. One of the reasons I left was because I was seeking meaning. How can we let people find meaning in their work? That's the reason why Fortune 500 and big companies are beginning to go after charity. Projects that people, they can say, okay, you're not the big leader here, but you anchor this initiative. I'm aware, for example, UBA has a foundation that each time they've appointed the MD of UBA Foundation, is not one of the top senior executives, a mid-level manager that now sees him or herself as running something. If you go to a lot of the banks, they now have CEOs that run divisions. Like she said, she's CEO for one of the subdivisions for Poise. That would be a reason why she's at Poise. I can almost say that she could find a better salary somewhere. But because she'll be able to bring out her card and say, I am the CEO of Poise, that could be the attraction for her. So for you, my message would be, find out the demographics. Who are the people that you want to re-engage, and we need to find out what works for them. In the same institution, if the issue is the millennial kids, it's not the same things that you want to deliver to these people that will work for them. And I say to everybody sitting down here today that if you're not making the most of the millennial children, you're losing a lot. I have not seen any generation as intelligent as they are. My son is 8 years old. If I tell you the things he does with my smartphone, I don't even know they have the capability to do. That's how they are. I sit in a school in France. I'm running a school program there. I have a 26-year-old and a 29-year-old sitting in the same class. While the program is going on, he's flipping his iPhone, working in the office, sending messages, ask a question, he's the first to respond. You've got to understand that I'm telling you the truth, their motivation is not you and I who have long attention span. Their attention span is very brief. You've got to understand that and give them what you want. Once you're able to give them what you want, they're willing to give you back much more. You can't afford to come and look over their shoulders. Is he looking at the internet? Is he doing BlackBerry? Yes, that comes with their age. But the question we need to do is, rather than focus on what they spend their time doing, focus on what you want them to deliver for you. Once you hold them accountable and you have the performance indices and matrices to track, it really doesn't matter whether they're working from home or whether they're surfing the internet. At the end of the week, have they delivered on what I want to say? If they have, we're good to go. Thank you.
Okay.
I need to respond to a question. And then I want to add something to what the blessed lady from Boys has said. And then I wanted to remind her, the government lady, that many years ago I did a proposal to a company, to an organization. I pushed very hard to be heard. I wasn't there. As a matter of fact, I was given a nickname from the way I pushed. It was nothing exciting, it was very embarrassing, and I was supposed to leave that place disgraced. But I left with my head up high, because I know that, like I said when I was speaking, change is a quality that cannot be buried, and truth comes with change. And so I left, and I knew that I was saying the right thing. The discussion I was leading was very critical. You know what happened? Exactly 6 years after, this company called me up, this organization called me up, and said they needed this solution again. You know what I did? I went to the same proposal that I gave them, because they asked me for a new proposal. I went to the same proposal, I changed the date, and sent it to them. My creator is my witness that I did not do anything extra in that document. I just sent it to him. It was bought, and I'm leading that great thing now. The idea is this: sometimes the best ideas come avant-garde. They come ahead of their time. And you need that patience to understand that what you need is not to be accepted, but to give your best. And once you have given your best, even when you are rejected, you have the comfort that your conscience has freed you to do what needs to be done. Time will always come to vindicate you. So it's not every time that your justice is in the moment. At times your justice will come in time. And you need to have comfort in that. Now, to respond to my post lady, you need to know that, if you have read the book by Collins and Porras, the book is called Built to Last. There is a chapter in the book where they dealt with court-like structures, and they were talking about values. And exactly what you said was a major discussion there. Jack Welch named it there, and in one of his materials, as a struggle between values and numbers. Values and numbers. And so you have some people who deliver big on the numbers, but not with the values. And then you have some people who don't deliver the numbers, but they are big on the values. The guys who are big on nothing, easy call. You can easily eliminate them. But if you begin to think one word, which is not common in our discussions, culture. Culture is the most important idea as far as the credibility, profitability, and longevity of a company is concerned. Now, there's no such thing as zero culture. You have a culture, whether you feel it intentionally or not. There's a culture working there. Now, when you begin to intentionally create a kind of culture, all right, that changes the game altogether. A lot of the culture you have in organizations happen by default, all right? When you begin to say, this is what we want, this is the environment we want, and a lot of what we are talking about, retention, engagement, a lot of those things, at the end of the day, comes back to culture. The biggest organizations, call it Toyota, Toyota's got the Toyota way. That's their culture.